changes his views many times, and you have to change with him. I don't know the internal dynamics, but from what is projected, it's like, Julius Malema decides, and Mandisa is opinionated. But with feminists that I've seen, even Bonsigi, I don't think she'll survive, long in the MK. Even Bomandisa, they take it to the I don't know, maybe we're not ready for that, but for me, they take it to the extreme ends, and it becomes adversarial. I feel that now, as a black person, a black man, and a black woman, we need to be fighting on the same side, as opposed to, opposite ends. I mean, you can see most feminism, the doorkeepers themselves, but at the top, it's the ANC, men. How many times have we had these guys being accused? I always ask them, I was in one of their groups. I used to ask them, how is it that you're always accused of rape? You're always caught up in these things, sexual harassment and all that, Bovavi, all of them, they're always caught up in sexual harassment. They've got this mentality, that's entitlement coming from exile. But do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? We don't have that. I can go to Sosha, Komabopane. You approach a girl, she says no. As hurtful as it is, you move on. I normally say, yesterday I was in Pretoria, where is Lux? Where is Lux? So I saw him in that light. Or you know what? Here we've got a gem. And I didn't want to see that gem being proliferated by Matama Adi politicians, the ANC guys and politicians, So that is where, my anger came from, But other than that, I still believe that,
Yeah, look, for me, I mean, jumping on and having a seat for me is a pleasure to always share time with you. Because people underestimate the amount of time we have in the universe, not only in our lifetime. In the next 1,000 years, history will then say, Mara, here's something with Lux and Ike. They lived and shared the same time, forget the same ideologies.
Pimville boys.
Soweto boys, Pimville boys. So for me, it's always a great pleasure. Whether it's when we are arguing or when we are having a great chat. For me, it's always a pleasure to spend time with this man. So it's neither here or there. But as for people that hate me without knowing me, like the lady you just spoke about, Mtsigi. Yeah.
In my next life, no, I'm not coming black. I was in the memorial of Khumalo Momukai yesterday.
Yeah.
Dr. Khumalo Momukai was killed by black people. He was not killed by Verwoerd. He was not killed by Terre Blanche in Mocharankuwa. This is a guy who's been my role model. This is the guy who had the surgeries, allowing people to come for free of charge. If you know Dr. Khumalo Momukai, he was that person, allowing people to come and serve black people. Each time you read a newspaper where a man raped Coco, he's not a white person.
No,
he's
definitely,
not black.
definitely.
So which is sad, because you're vandalized by your own people. But at least that has to change, I believe that,
Mashiane politically incorrect. I haven't told him yet. So when I decided on going podcasting, one of the voices that I wanted to hear was Ike Khumalo. And for various reasons, because, the reason I chose politically incorrect is because there's no one in South Africa who can claim not to be politically incorrect like this man. I listened to him for over many years, SAFM 702. He's probably hated by a lot of people who are not of our own pigmentation because of his wild views. I do not prepare podcasts. I do not prepare questions. Him and I are just going to talk about anything, whether it's politics, whether Kebanyana, whether it's anything, because I just want to hear his voice. I enjoy these conversations. And if you wanted to come with a podcast interview and stuff, and I'm sure to do that. And I'm
not complaining, my brother. After a long time.
Yeah.
Here we met, and our times always been clashing. But and I felt guilty because I had your numbers and I lost them. That's why I sent
Yeah.
in the message to him, and I lost your number.
Sure.
Yeah, because sometimes I'll be in Pretoria, in and out, and I meant to come to you, but at least today we met. Under these circumstances. I would have
Thank you.
liked to be in the studio, but it's fine. We are good here.
Yeah, no, we'll do it again. We'll do it again. So, first things first, if you were to explain to someone, like the pride of Soweto, what are the things that make? I was interviewing this young man from Soweto. He's gonna hate me calling him a young man, Barakitabo from Mzanzi. So I was telling another Soweto guy. Soweto. So sell Soweto for us. I mean Soweto ke Brooklyn. I mean Soweto ke everything. And we are doing this in Soweto, by the way, undisclosed location. So Soweto that makes you think it makes Soweto stand out of all townships, Momzanzi?
Look, Sowetans, they are proud people. If you see the Zulu guys from KZN, they're very proud about their culture, but it doesn't mean that they hate others. That's my understanding, looking at them from a distance. By the way, I'm no longer Zulu, if I was. My parents are still Zulu, but now just keep Lutz, because I cannot be part of something that I cannot control and something that makes me a subject. I don't like to be a subject or bow to another man. I can respect you enough, but if I'm supposed to bow as in be a subject and told that my bloodline is inferior, then no ways, unless I can take over. Yeah, but Soweto guys and girls, they are very proud of their hood, and Soweto, it's South Africa. There's no South Africa without Soweto. South Africa knows. Yeah. That's why when people are complaining about Soweto, about electricity, no, we fought for these things. I was a young man, 84, 85, so what was won on the battlefield was lost on the table. So Soweto people have that thing, that pride. We've contributed, to the struggle. We've contributed to the culture of South Africa. And remember, back in the days, some of the townships, they were under the TBV states. Some, they were homelands. They were not really part of South Africa. So South Africa at that time, the heartbeat of South Africa, it became Soweto because it's nearer, its proximity to Johannesburg. That's what makes it different. We've got other townships like maybe Bokatlehong, but Soweto is the nearest, the southwestern townships. Then you include Bo-Eldos, Bo-Rivali, going to the west, Bozola, Deep Soweto. So by virtue of that, the circumstances made it, possible for people to revolt. And if you wanted to work in Joburg, remember Joburg was, their jewel. So everybody came to live in Soweto. Be it Mandela, Robert Sobukwe, Bomtuping, everybody, had to, pass by here. Even you come from Lesotho, you came to Soweto because it was close. Even the culture, be it dance, Manhattan Brothers, Makeba, they passed through here, soccer teams, Chiefs, Pirates, the first derby, Soweto, Moroka Swallows, and Pirates, then comes Kaizer Chiefs. It's that culture. And we interacted with other townships, like if you go to Bososha, go to East Rand, Bokatoras, because you cannot be, an island. I mean, even Chiefs, I was told that Kaizer Chiefs bought a status from one club in Katlehong. I don't know whether it was, I forgot the name, but it was a team called Katlehong something. They bought the status and then they came into the NPSL. So we're always, connected. I normally say Sundowns, Kitlapia Soweto. Because Zola Mahove, he had a house called Pimville Zone 1 and he wanted to buy pubs. So Matama pubs, they were buys. So he went to Pretoria, bought a Mamelodi Sundowns, which is a good team. And it's giving us
it's funny ka Zola, and I don't want to go to Zola always checking Kikuku or our to fall from grace. But I'm picking up one thing that you said. When Ale Penwell, I mean, unprovoked, you just excommunicated yourself from what people think. Oh, you can't deny it. So you chose to go out of it, and of course you've got your reasons. And some of the reasons, listening to what you're saying, is because you do not want to conform to these standards of saying because Zulu, someone is going to lead you, expect you to bow and everything. So you see, in South Africa now we've got problems. You know, I don't want to say legitimacy because legitimacy, a bit of legitimacy is there. In terms of stability, there's no royal house that is actually stable. All of them are being fought for.
Yeah.
In my channel, I speak a lot about that, and we discuss it. We've got 3 kingdoms: Vapedi, Vavenda, Balobedu. These 3 are led by women.
Yes.
Even at a different stage of leading and being confirmed. I mean, the 2 Ramaphosa has recognized. The other one is still in courts. Constitutional Court said she must lead, stuff like that. So, and I think that ticks you off. What is the way we are going? You know, what's our people will say, but if you hate it here in South Africa, in Europe they make it work. The Windsors are leading. And what is the future if we want to, because MK wants to push for that, if we want the Hoshi to rise, but we also want this system of a councillor, is a councillor going to be better than an induna, and then a mayor will be better than a chief, will a provincial a premier be better than a king, stuff like that. Unpack it for me. Where's the future? Because it at some point is going to be a contradiction.
Yeah, before I come home, you know, I don't approve of any royal house or royal family having a super status, godly status above me. But if they are okay with that, that's fine by them. I don't believe that there is another man, another mortal who's going to die, who has chosen to govern me. I still have issues with God, you know, and that's why in my next life, when I meet God, I just want to have man to man with God, and then I've got lots of questions to ask. You know, the failures of God to intervene and failure to get proper answers. I also want to be God. I don't like to bow to another person for eternity. Imagine in Christianity, they tell you that you're going to sing, you know, and worship Hosanna, Hosanna for eternity. No. Heaven is boring according the Christians, the way they describe it. I want to have all those things that I never got here. You know, I'll ask lots of questions why God is not intervening when children are being raped, you know, by evil people. There's so many evil people who are winning all the time or seem to be winning all the time. You know, but the English monarch, it's working for them because they have looted the world and gave it to their people. So it's helping them. It's like the Americans, when they go loot all over the world and they give it to America, they make New York better, they make their citizens better, you know, the grants. But here in South Africa, I don't see how is Mrs. Zulu going to contribute, you know, in my life, other than him becoming another lootist. Most of these guys, they just want to be lootist. I hear you saying that MK, they're also pushing for the royal houses. I don't believe so. They're just pushing the issue because it's gaining momentum. It's the same as the issue of immigration. Because by virtue of the monarch coming into being, it means it reduces the politicians. Of it, Jacob Zuma is a politician. He has no stake, he has no claim to the royal houses. So why would you push for something that will diminish you? I don't believe that. They're just pushing it now because they need something to give them mileage. But these guys, most of them, post 1910, they have no contribution in my life or in the life of South Africa. Maybe the last one, you know, it was 1906, Bambata's Rebellion and others who tried to fight the colonialists. But after that, you've got puppets, people who are abusing black people for their own personal need. So for now, I believe that a man must work, you know, eat from his sweat. And why would I give my taxes to a king? And I don't agree with the political system that we have today, you know, coming from Codesa. I've never voted for it. But it is better. At least people can vote and say, we don't want Ramaphosa. We don't want so and so. But when was the last time or the first time you heard people saying we don't want Mrs. Zulu, and then they had actual power? So you have no control. It's the royal house that's supposedly coming from the sky somewhere. All of the kings, they believe that they were chosen by God, isn't it? There are similarities between charismatic churches, Wopushiri and others. Says no, God spoke to me to speak to you. So you cannot choose kings. They are appointed by their families. Whoever is appointing them, that's not democracy. So at least in a political scenario, people say, we no longer want this, we want this one. He might mess up, his term will come to pass, they choose. So to have someone leading you by bloodline, I disagree with that. And to be told that my bloodline is inferior, I'm inferior to no one. I am a king of my life. I determine my destiny. My children, when they come, they want food from me. I must provide. I don't bow to another man. I don't worship another man. Mrs. Zulu I must admit, with him, he can confuse me a bit, because one thing about him, which is unique, he bows first. When he meets you, he bows. And then you are forced. Yes, then if it's that way, equal. But I was here, Boshembe type of. And these guys, they contribute nothing. It's the same as these churches, Boshembe. I mean, Boshembe, you've got more than 6 million members, Libo ZCC, all these traditional churches. What are they doing for their own people? I mean, imagine if a church like Shembe can start an institution, and saying, as from today, we are producing our own fabric, we are producing our own sewing company, everything else, and employ people in large scale. How much changes they can, create, and say, we're not going to use anything that you don't produce. And if we are 6 million, together, and say, as from today, we have a stake. If we are driving these cars, I mean, check the Zulus. Mainly they dominate the taxi industry. I mean, for how many years? And you're going to be told that,
40 years.
Yeah, they're superior. The taxis are superior, the Zulu kingdom. And then I asked them, where is this superiority? When Toyota, Zolabat, the taxis, the Quantum, they've made their wealth on top of you, using your labor, and you have no say. I mean, by now, the Zulu kingdom or the taxi guys, they should be having a stake in Toyota and say, listen here, for every Quantum you put here, we've got so much stake, or you empower us in the value chain, or we manufacture tires, not fighting for the roads and shooting each other. How many people have killed each other, And you check, I'll go mainly to the Zulu monarch, because they're big, and understand the dynamics between IFP and Mangosuthu with Zwelithini. They will fight and say the other one was oppressed. But I've never heard the Zulu subject or the Zulu monarch, cautioning his subject. Even 1976. 1976 in Soweto, the Zulus killed a student, predominantly from the hostels. When the students were saying, stay away, we are fighting the system of the day, they attacked the people. 94 came, 1990 came, they did the same thing. Even IFP was always against our struggle. When you say sanctions, which sanctions is not a nice thing, but somewhere we're also committing suicide. They were anti-armed struggle. They say no, they're anti-armed struggle. Stay away. They were anti-everything, that, black people wanted. And then you tell me, why must I follow that? I can't do that. So I don't have a king. And
So do you have a problem if it is women who are now leading these royal houses, or Botswana fela?
I don't have a problem. What's one fella? Whether it's women or men. Actually, women, they have led before. Bomantatishi, Bo Nzenga, and they've led very well. They've led, nations to war. They've won. And then they've, reigned, peacefully so. So I don't have a problem with that. Even Queen Elizabeth, I mean, she had the most successful empire for many years for her people. If I was believing in the royal houses and monarch, I would love to live under, her reign, because she made Britain what it is.
Politics.
Yes.
Longevity of females in politics. Ebola King Ikawata King, you opined on as a as a feedback on the disclosures from Mandisa Mashego,
Okay.
and of course disappointed. What do you think is a brand of women activism or women in politics that makes women not to sustain longevity in politics? Bakawata King Basadi.
At the moment,
What rubs men off about women in leadership?
yeah, I'll come to what rubs men off. But when it comes to South African politics, they don't offer much space for women because it's still male dominated. Because we're still having that class yabo exile, that class yabo Robben Island. It was men, predominantly men. And women who are coming are those women that are appointed by these men. If you look into the history of the armed struggle, the history of apartheid struggle, MK, you go to Apla, you go to Azanla, most of these men, they have tortured these women in their camps. They have raped them. Some were killed, accused as spies if they did not cooperate. So there's that rape culture. That's why in the ANC, when they asked, why is it that women in the ANC, they don't promote a candidate of their own for presidency? I think Ayanda Dlodlo said these women, they're still scared of these men. I mean, the terror happening in exile is still fresh. Yeah. Many of them, they were abused. So that's why they cannot emerge. That's why they cannot allow any other young woman who's coming from somewhere fresh from school or the politics. Libona, they've sacrificed so much. When if you could put like a fella, they've got that thing, kokasi ko shipping, or haji weliena. I can't see fit fella no fella. We've sacrificed so much, and I feel like a degree the paper. Lena, Lorena, we've been abused. You check all of them.
I follow line.
Yeah, I follow line Lena ajiwe, a patch Lena kakukai. So because if you check all of them, they marry each other. This one has got a kid with Zuma. This one has dated this. You check, it's like Barroundana. So, even during the era Yambik, if you can notice, this one was a minister. The wife is a minister. On the other side is a deputy. There's a DG. It was never just a woman, free flowing from nowhere. It's like I can like director general. Okay, there's a husband. They were all interlinked. So it is that. So there's no space for people with capabilities, model C, to come in, people who can lead us somewhere, people who don't have those credentials or struggle. So they become the doorkeepers themselves, but at the top, it's the ANC, men. How many times have we had these guys being accused? I always ask them, I was in one of their groups. I used to ask them, how is it that you're always accused of rape? You're always caught up in these things, about sexual harassment and all that, Bovavi, all of them, they're always caught up in sexual harassment. They've got this mentality, that's entitlement coming from exile. But do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? We don't have that. I can go to Sosha, Kumabopane. You approach a girl, she says no. As hurtful as it is, you move on. I normally say, if you approach Kelly Khumalo and she says no, you go to Rihanna. And then she realizes, you go, what? She comes back running. And sometimes they're in conflict with Rihanna. She wants to see herself at the level of Rihanna. Who's the beneficiary there? I get to benefit. The next thing, Kiriwana Pelchus, Marking Kawe, Naralwena, stamina, so in the morning. So it's one of those things. But when it comes to feminist, I have a dim view at the feminist. Actually, I hate feminism. I don't think that there is a need for feminism. Even if you go back in the times, when we're still traditional, communal, I don't think that women were oppressed. I think that we've got different roles. The colonialists, when they saw African women, in the fields, in the, planting, millies and all that, they thought that it's exploitation. But there's a reason for that, for everything that was happening. Men could not touch food. only women could nurture food, something that has to do with growth, longevity, because men's hands were full of blood. There are certain things that you couldn't do because men, they have killed before. They couldn't touch certain livestock. That's why I think there's a video somewhere where they show this girl. It's a young girl. It's a young girl who's never met a man jumping the horse. The horse was sick. All of a sudden, the horse, I don't know how true is that. But the feminists, they adopted this Western culture where in the Western world, women are oppressed. I mean, you can check even in the Bible. Till now, when we practice religion, when we, in its original form, there was always a god and a goddess. Even if you go to the oldest religion, the African religion from Ethiopia, Sudan, when we have, who's this one who became Jesus later? They cut and paste, he became Jesus. Osiris, during that era, Isis,
Yeah.
Osiris, you'll find that there's Isis, there's Osiris, and then there's Heru. There's always a balance. It's only them, even in the Bible, when they came in, they did away with the goddess. Mary had, a subordinate role. In the Trinity, I mean, the concept of Trinity, it was conceptualized by Pharaoh Ignatine. Pharaoh Ignatine was called the hippie. He was called the rebel Pharaoh because he was tired of many gods. Until the Egyptians, they had many gods. God of the sea, God of the island, God of this. Then he says, you know what, I'm tired of this God. I'm putting all this God together. That's where the concept of unifying all God, that we have one God. But, manifesting himself or herself differently. So then the Christian, whenever they took over, cutting and pasting this thing, they did away with the mother. They just said, you know what, it's God the Father and God the Son. And the Son was Wagokai. And then they put the Holy Ghost, and Holy and Ghost. It's another contradiction, So that is that. So rona re tseba e ghost mfethu ha bona vera the ghost wa show yo mfethu dikoloi di a menoga go ba rona le
And then they say
spoko
the blood of Jesus. They drink the blood of Jesus.
yeah, that's another. I mean, the blood of Jesus. I thought that you'll find him. Jesus was 12. So, because some of the things, you can only explain when you go to the Genesis, where this text was copied from. Christianity is not original. Buddhism, Hinduism, all of them, they were stolen from the African text. So, hence these things exist. The other time I was asking one pastor, I said, between the age of 18 and 30, Jesus disappears in the Bible. Nobody knows. I think it's 12 and 30, it disappears for 18 years. I said, where was Jesus? They can't tell you. Because in an African, old, ancient African culture, a boy would disappear at 12 and he shows up as a man at 30, going through all the initiations, and then he shows up. Jesus shows up at 30, he dies at 33. Yeah, so he's completed what he was here for. So you have to go back to the Genesis, those texts that were stolen. You have to go back to the Council of Antioch, the Council of Jamila, the Council of, Nicaea, and check all these things, where they come from.
So you reckon, because the original question was...
Or feminism.
Yeah, of the original question was Mandisa Mashio.
Yes.
A strong woman as she is, she's got lots of feminism drive. And at a masculine organization like EFF, people, even when she was still there, people said she's not going to last. And, well, they were proven correct. When I sat with Dr. Kanyisile,
Yes.
Litchfield Chabalala, I asked her that you are too opinionated, you are a free mind. You will not succeed in politics, especially this career politics. And even your history, a little history in politics actually shows that. And in MK is going to be worse. How are you going to find space there? Because Honaleba Ruti and stuff, and you do not conform to the Java Ruti organized churches. And I still insist, I don't see a woman like her, because I mean, she's a free mind. She's liberated. It's going to be difficult for her. What makes these women not survive in politics?
No, she will not survive in politics. Maybe in a civil rights organization. It's the same as going to a taxi rank, and then you want to survive there as a woman. Your path is going to be narrow. And I find it, with black feminists, they take it to the extreme. Look, within the EFF, she wasn't going to survive anyway, because Julius Malema, for me, I see Julius Malema as a King Jong-un or Nkurunziza. So if you don't agree with him, you're out. There's little democracy in terms of that. You can see even their members, they have to wait for him to say something, then they tweet. Even Bondlozi, and then agree with his view. Ndlozi has changed his views so many times. Julius changes his views many times, and you have to change with him. I don't know the internal dynamics, but from what is projected, it's like, Julius Malema decides, and Mandisa is opinionated. But with feminists that I've seen, even Bonsigi, I don't think she'll survive, long in the MK. Even Bomandisa, they take it to the I don't know, maybe we're not ready for that, but for me, they take it to the extreme ends, and it becomes adversarial. I feel that now, as a black person, a black man, and a black woman, we need to be fighting on the same side, as opposed to, opposite ends. I mean, you can see most feminism, when they emerge, it's against a black guy. They never say anything against any nationality, even with R. Kelly, even with Bill Cosby. They are more vocal. I'm not saying those guys, they were correct, but Tiger Woods and all that. And then it becomes adversarial. For years, women, they've been kicking men, and we keep quiet. Sometimes you just say, I can kid you, but, the kicks became stronger and stronger. And you look in other nationalities, you don't see the people who are perpetuating racism, other nationalities, perpetuating all the stereotypes, all the gender inequalities, because they've got power. Black men doesn't have power. You never see black feminism rising against those people. It is always us. You are useless. You stay at home. You stay with your mom, and not taking into account, why is it that I'm not working? Why is it that I'm not providing? Because the dynamics have changed. And you're taking the kick, and then men started to get, enough and say, what? Yeah, we've been told that we are trash. Even though it is your choices that you've made. You choose bad boys. And then the bad boys, they mess you up. And then you come, you say, all men are trash. Men started to rise and say, no, we cannot handle this anymore. And then you start to push back, which is unfortunate, because we're supposed to be fighting on the same side. But with Mandisa, she took that posture. I see her taking that posture, to be saying, you men, and then obviously when you take that posture, we're going to start defending ourselves, and saying, what, you don't take accountability. And at the moment, the black woman that we are dealing with is different from any other black man that we have seen in history. Our mothers, were something else, different. And right now we are dealing with a black woman who's, economically emancipated. It's a stage that, women have never found themselves, especially black women. And then this woman, unlike our mothers, doesn't give a hoot about you, But eventually, it doesn't end well, because we're supposed to be working together. And we have someone who is encouraged, to go rogue and do nonsense without accountability. I mean, you check all the terminologies that exist. Abo, I know my worth, bare minimum. Even where you're trying, you're told that, no, that's bare minimum. You cannot praise a fish for, for swimming. So unappreciated, guys, they feel good. You know what? I've got too much to lose here, and I might as well, kick back. So it's unfortunate that we got into that. I don't think Nalimandis. I think we are both opinionated. She's a nice person, a lovely person. I don't think we'll get along, in terms of our views. Because I feel that the most feminists, they don't take accountability. When you try to warn them, they tell you that you are hurt, you are controlling. Who hurt you, all those things. And men and women are different. We view things differently. And feminists, they want to impose to men. They want to tell men what is it that is correct, not taking into account that we see the world differently. A man is looking for something else when he looks at a woman. I mean, I'm looking at a woman's past. a female will look at the future. That's why most of the time they want a provider, a guy who can conquer, a guy who can protect. And I'm not looking at that. That's why men, they marry down. I can take a case here, as long as one about has not bad record, because right now we are physical beings. We mark territory. And we are visual beings. I don't want somebody who's going to embarrass me. I don't want somebody all the guys here in this clubhouse, because we take pride, or you know what, nobody knows her. You know, that's what
animals of conquest.
Yes, you know, and I mean, if a woman has slept with 40 guys and all that, what makes me special? Then I'm just one of the guys. Now we want that. That's why we don't forgive. When a woman is cheated, it's very difficult to forgive. If a man forgives you, you must know it's for ulterior motives. You know, guys don't just forgive. When they forgive, they become angry, they become something else. So the first thing that I'll ask my woman, did he sleep with you? You know, that's the only question that matters. But women, they'll ask emotional questions. Maybe in the past, I don't know feminists what they ask now. They'll ask, you know, what led you? You know, is in our own house, our bed, you know. So they'll ask those questions. So we are different, even during sex. Now as a guy, they'll say size don't matter. It matters to me. So feminists cannot sell me that idea, no, size does not count, you must know where the cleats lie. No, now I want to kill. I'm a killer. But even the way we describe sex, is, you know, it's like ngiyabulala ngamshaya sibalulele mfana yabo ngamshaya ngamhlikiniza ngamkama mfethu ngavuvuzela. So I want to see that, you know, like Tamaliana kuthi like amisa step ke ngimshayile yabo ngimshapile. So that's why when you feel man, I'm not reaching there, I want to reach there, you know, kumele lutula onke undertaker kilbe mo 1 2 3 I want to see that expression, you know, I'm making an impact, not that thing where then I'm not sure whether I'm in or out. So but now they want, you know, it's soft. They describe it in a, you know, he touched me, oh, it's not. Well, now we don't want that, you know. We want our enjoyment. It's about pain. Even we're different, even our sports. I mean, you check guys who are popular, known, the type of sports that they play. It's a contact sport. Especially UFC, boxing. Those are guys who become big, you know. There are exceptions, but, you know, we are like that. So, but unfortunately, Bona, they want to sell you a car, 1940, and say, take that. You say, no, but I want a current car, which, you know, but no, this one is good. Then you say, no, I want this. But it is the buyer's market. Unfortunately, in relationships, you know, this is where guys have the advantage. Women also have the advantage somewhere else, you know. But in this one, guys, they determine, you know, whether to marry or not to marry. They know what they want. You know, they say they want clean record. That's why they'll ask a body count. Guys like us, we don't ask body count. We are old school. You can tell. You go, the body count, the mileage is high. When I drive the car, I can tell because of my experience. I mean, a car with high body count and a car with low body count, they don't behave the same.
Sure.
Yeah, mutu, pela wabona mutu akala, wabona, there's that shame, there's that thing. There are certain positions you don't do for the first time. When the person says, no, get on top for the first time, no. But those positions, they're uncomfortable, physically, emotionally for some people. There are some people you can tell, I know this one. No, man, can you switch off the light? Wait. Because this person here is so used to, you know, this one has been around. So the behavior is different.
Yeah.
So now we want that person who's unknown. That's why a woman can be a medical doctor with so many degrees. I don't care how much money you make. I can go for a person who's a boxer, go shop right, fresh from Lesotho, knows nothing. I say, hey, now I was disappointed by one guy, that one, you know, or I've never met a guy, or maybe I had 2 guys compared to Slay Queen, you know. Yeah, we don't take pride in that.
So, the new era, I mean, whether it's in political discourse, show business, in all spheres, masculinity is taking a bad light. And I mean, the more masculine you are, the more you are rejected in lots of levels. I mean, even in corporate, masculinity is seen as something aggressive and offensive. When you started out with modeling.
Yes.
and I mean, Nolumu strata. And the reason you converted to that, what is it? Is it because of your masculinity and dominance? No, no, like what is it like? Why did you choose? Because like I grew up in a township, so in my township. Would often, of course, Mautedi dancing and stuff. My best friend was doing dancing, so we would kill him every time. I mean, I would invite him to the basketball courts, and we would always remind him, "This is not dance. This is not cha-cha-cha. One." We'll push him over. But it's just that you were picked on when you take the soft, like non-contact sports and stuff, and what made you have confidence to go there when you know most guys wouldn't want to go there?
Yeah, for me, for me, I will say this. I didn't start in the arts.
Yeah.
I started in the street. Like, most of the guys who grew up in the townships. I normally say that there's nothing that I haven't done, that a Kasi boy would do. As a Kasi boy, you try everything. You try style, you try to dress in a certain way, you try girls, you try to be a tsotsi. There's nothing. You hold, you've got guns at an early stage. I always wanted to be that guy because my role models were those guys. Kokasi, you'll see a knife fight, and you wanted to have that stature so that no one can disturb you. So I've stolen, thing is, but a car thief, I wouldn't be a car thief because I'm big on safety. So I've hijacked cars. I normally say Soweto, or if in South Africa, the first people to start car hijacking, it's us. It's our generation, and I'm one of the forefronts that, because it was easier. Those days we were hijacking white people because that culture hijacking, it was not there before 1984-85. The Tutsis that we had, they were stealing cars. But after the era of comrade, when they were demobilizing us, we were not stop, making the country ungovernable. Now, Bo Oppenheimers, they've met Bo Oliver Tambo. So we went on, to steal cars, babang, we went on to hijack. And for me, it was out of necessity. I didn't have money and I was angry, So taking into account, the political history, we went into carjacking. Babang, they went to jump at the counter. So when I went into modeling, it's because I went to register for a first year. I didn't have a bursary. My first bursary, I took corner here in Pimville, a white man's car and a policeman car, hijacked, sold one, chopped another, and then got money. My mom, so now, if going to the second year, I didn't have money. So it means I must go back to the street. And then, by then I've met models such as Bo Castin Maselele. I've seen Bo Cheki, I've befriended them because you bump into them. Then they kept on saying, why don't you try modeling? Why don't you try modeling? I kept on saying, I'm in Tokyo di Chuzana. Those days, gays were dominating the modeling industry. I said, no, I can Tokyo di Chuzana. And indeed, when I first started to do modeling, sales house, wearing underwears. My friends used to tease me, but I didn't care at that time because my self-esteem was a bit higher then because I had grown a bit. Peer pressure didn't affect me that much because I did Mr. Caltini and now going to Mr. SA, the girls, they're screaming. Then I've never had this. But I've always been a bad boy. The only time I had interaction with girls is like girls, they're coming to my hood. But they didn't call me Ike Tami. They didn't know me. Sometimes girls will be told, when you go that side, just say Ucholali Tami.
Yeah.
Then I bump into a girl and say, hey, how's it? So before I get girlfriend that time, time over. So those days we were taught that way, because we're, go the street bash, go, come here. When the girls, and then and they like that, but we didn't know much. I told those girls, a girl can't say yes the first time around. Turn it out, try so first half, you shall no, and okay, fine. The half much. The promise. Yes. Next time of it, we call the promise. Sometimes you're gonna have that, that struggle. ya eng a re ha le nna ke a o rata le nna motlotlo o fedile
Ke tlo bona neng.
ya ngwana vele a re le nna ke a o rata. Eish, you don't know how to proceed from there on. Now what? You know, I went to the stadium that day. So those days it was tough because you had to wait for your parents to go. And then ngwana, she knew, no, utlotlo nchakela. I kena ka montlong, di awa mfethu yabo. And we are learning, you know, sometimes ngwana wa hlubula umbrasha usala ka bra from there I know why are you doing this. Yes, you know, we are already on baba.
Yeah.
You have to uncenge mfethu uncenge ngwana re ikyatswa mo otherwise ku sa TV.
So this thing of this thing, and I want you to answer it two ways. This thing of Ike arati basadi ba didaki o beta makhala tefela, or if she's African.
Oh, you picked up on that.
Man, it's all over. So if because already the weave, already what we nyaka natural and what sort of arena abasana di pem jail di senya nako, so they bafaka the weave, you know. So that and the fact, and if you are happy to disclose, please do. Or because people want to compare you. Because looking at the comments, they want to compare you. What you are doing, they're gonna do it to your daughters.
Okay.
Yeah. So explain that, and also speaking about your daughters, or how would you want people to treat your daughters, and how many do you have if you want to speak about that show?
Yeah, for me, there's this misconception that I hate black women. No, I don't. I love black women in their natural form. I met one lady. I normally relate the story. This woman, she came, she had a nice dress, heels, walking like a horse, baba, galloping, like cross legs, chest out. She had a hairstyle here, like Aliyah. You know, there's this hairstyle,
yes,
Aliyah. Closing one eye. Yes. Lips, thick, red, beautiful. I went to her, then I told her, hey man, Kimoto, so, I'm taking you places, come with me. Then the lady gave me numbers, we agreed. The next time I saw her, the weave was not there. All those things, it was like, I went from Rihanna to Mahlatini or Skukuni. It was like I'm looking at Shaka Zulu. And then my feelings are supposed to remain constant. And then I says, no, this is deception, you know. It was very difficult for me to adjust, you know. Well, I slept with her. Yeah, it was difficult to leave her for other reasons. Yeah, that I must give credit to her. If she's listening to this, she had a tight grip.
Stop on this.
Yeah, she was a choke star. But it is mainly that, you know, most, you know, they don't like me because I say, I like to see African women in their natural form. You know, if you're dark, be dark. I've met beautiful women from Zambia, pitch black, like Sudan black. I say, wow, you know, and I like that. I also like light skin. You know, like I've got my preferences, you know. My sister is light. My mom, when we were young, she was very light. She's only now that she's becoming darker because, you know, mangkhona batsofala ya ko mkholong ba re tsasa castrol ya koloi lena wa tsasa ya mochisa tsasa oil the GS3 ya BMW wa tsasa, and then I keep on fighting it. But remember, those are the first women that I see, light skin, like, you know, I'm used to that, you know, and I'm dark. Obviously, I like something opposite to me. Like some women, they like tall guys, they like short guys. So that's a preference. But I'm not static. I do make exceptions, you know. Sometimes I see a dark woman, but I prefer natural. Don't mislead me. When we go to Durban, no yellow bone, all of a sudden you're dark. You know, and all of a sudden the weave, it's a milegametsi. There's something else that, you know, you didn't, you know, promote.
The package that was sold is not sustainable.
Yeah, I cannot go kilo reka BMW X5. And then the salesperson wants to say, no, take Polo. I've already praised price at BMW, and my hopes BMW Polo. So that is the thing. I don't hate black women. Colored women, they've also changed. They evolved over the years. You know, they've got certain habits that did not exist amongst them. Colored women were known to be loyal. They will fight for you, you know. I mean, even if you're not working, you know, they will not change, you know, just like that. So unfortunately, that trait is not existent as our mothers, had that. There was a time when our fathers were not working. Maybe you've lost an employment, the mother will be there. But today it's about, what is it that you have? You can provide, because you can check now the slave queens, the prostitute, they have taken over the public narrative. The culture of shame is gone. That's why I say we must bring back shame. There's no longer shame. People are selling their bodies openly on internet, everywhere. They just go, and black women, they've bought into that. And then you check white feminists, they're still, obedient. They still know their role. You don't find white feminists fighting their men. Even if their men are responsible for all the atrocities in the world. When was the last time you saw white women, Indians, fighting their men? They don't. It's only us, we are at loggerheads. So, until maybe that improves. But for now, I don't hate black women, but I'm open. I cannot be limited. Yeah, I'm here to live. It's be it white woman, be it. I still envy a Chinese, not a Chinese, a Japanese woman. I've never met a Japanese. I'm not going to limit myself. I meet a colored person. I meet an Indian. I've dated an Indian many times. If I see something that I like, I go for it. Even as long as the age is acceptable, I'll go for it. With my kids, I tell them they're natural. All my kids, they're natural. I tell them, what, stay natural. And I will guide them, because I believe that the father and an uncle and a brother, they must choose or have a say in the partner that the daughter is going to have, or the sister. Because right now we can spot a white boy. Most women, they can't. Most of the time they'll pick even someone who's gay. They don't see those. We can see, oh, no, man, there's something wrong with this guy. I'll be influential, in helping them out to pick. But if they don't listen, that's their thingy.
Sarah, Colin Makubele, and I'm confusing them. Annelem Da, I think that she was independent candidate last year. Yeah, and it was a spectacular disappointment for women to actually pick a woman-led political party. There are one party or one dominant leader, political parties. I give MK and EFF as an example because, they're easy to pick because they're the most popular ones. Yes. But there are many, Bobosa, for example, and stuff. Why is it difficult for men and women, of course, because they outnumber us, yes, women? Why is it difficult for them to rally behind a political party led by a female? And I know I asked you a lot of female questions. I want us to talk about this because, women have this ability to blame us for everything. Yes. We are even blamed for not discussing and talking about women and not wanting them. And they even blame us for not hosting women on the podcast, yes, but they are the one who refused to come to the podcast. Yes. So I just want to understand this makeup. Are men afraid to be led by women, or are women afraid to lead women? Like, why do we not have a political party that is run by a woman and is centered around a figure of a woman?
For me, when it comes to political parties led by women, I believe that women, they should also support other women, provided, of course, they are selling what they want, not only because you are a woman. The woman must also be relevant to their needs. And I've seen women working together. There's this thing that women don't work together, maybe in politics, because women are a majority and we don't see it translating into votes for female candidates. But elsewhere, women, they've always worked together. At the Stockfell, you see women working together. At the funerals, women coming together, working. There's so many situations. Even Kokasi, when there's a conflict, you'll see women, they're the first ones to come in. They say, hey, let's but I want some short. They'll come in between people fighting Kadipangas, which is progressive. So I don't know why in politics. Maybe it's the culture, maybe as time goes, things will change. I see Lux, things will change. Is it Lux?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I see. Maybe with time things will change. I love Lux, but I'm critical of him as he's coming. I love Nhlanhla Lux, but I'm critical of him when he makes mistakes, and Lena is critical of me. And yeah, let me say, okay,
let's ask him.
Before Peter, let me say this.
Yeah.
Because I always say this, he doesn't listen to me enough.
Yeah.
He makes me angry. I must say this, he makes me angry. And because in him, I saw someone, I know that you'll deny that. Someone, let me sit properly. Jacob Zomar, listen properly.
Listen properly.
He was carrying that thing. Soweto has never had that thing. You asked me about Soweto earlier. That's the Yeti Mashinini thing. He had more than that. I saw, sometimes Michael Jackson would not be Michael Jackson if Joseph Jackson did not insist, So you need somebody to insist. Unfortunately, the people who surrounded Lux, they wanted to misuse him for their own narrative. I still feel
they blame me a lot for loving him, and I keep telling them, I'm not going to apologize.
I saw Lux, you don't need this guy.
Come and take your seat. Come and defend yourself. Come and defend your cause.
I can stand.
No, you're not standing.
Let me, maybe wants to hear more what I had to say.
Yeah.
And Lux was seen as a breath of fresh air. He was carrying that torch. He still can. He still has that, And wherever I go, people ask me about Lux. Where is Lux? Even yesterday I was in Pretoria. Where is Lux? Where is Lux? So I saw him in that light. Or you know what? Here we've got a gem. And I didn't want to see that gem being proliferated by Matama Adi politicians, the ANC guys and politicians. So that is where, my anger came from. But other than that, I still believe that, he has a space and he's doing well. Got the question of the drugs, when he's doing the rehabs, even though the problem is bigger.
He's got schools.
Yeah, even though the problem is bigger, because remember, the people who are selling drugs, they also manufacturing our problems. So we are forever fixing. So sometimes you need to deal with the source of the problems. So the people who are bringing drugs here, the people who are opening borders for wrong people, because when we opened our borders between 1990 and 1994, we thought that we were going to attract scarce skills, people who are going to come here and teach us things that we did not know. Look at South Korea. South Korea, they attracted people who are going to come and teach them. China. But unfortunately, like Gwede Mantashe said, that when you open your window at night, in the summer day, not only the fresh air comes in, also the mosquito. So the mosquitoes, they started to come in without being vetted. Today we've got thugs from Brazil, coming here, seeing South Africa as a safe haven, selling drugs from Cyprus. We've got Cyprus mafia, we've got Pakistani mafia, we've got Zimbabwe tsotsis and gold mafias and bombers of ATMs and stuff like that. So we are forever fixing until we go to the fundamentals and stop these people from coming in the first place. I know most people will say, yeah, but you must blame your government, you must blame your people. If you've got a snake in your dining room, the first point of call, you kill the snake. Or second is wrong, then you come after, and they don't deal. Yeah, so that is the problem that we have in South Africa.
So let me tell you what Lux did, and I commended him for. So remember that there was a recent flop or Zimba did laced with poison and stuff.
Yes.
So Lux stood up and he gathered Batubadi's Paza. And he said, okay, instead of fighting, how about we do this? Like the Bazari schemes, we work together. This are the things that we are going to do for Batuba Soweto. You're doing this, and that. And that is proactive. And I was telling people, when I posted it, I was telling people, guys, this is why I've got hope, Nhlanhla, because what you were hoping that he does is, so I would compare him with Bobby Wine, or Uganda, who's receiving lashing even today, Kim Seven. And these are our hopes that we had. And when Alwali Julia said, I was like, man, we are going to get into that situation that one of them wins and one of them is hated forever. Even if when he repents, we are going to lose one forever.
I didn't want him to be in contact. I just wanted to leave Julius to the ANC.
And that is the problem that I tell you about that. And we have these rising stars only one of them could be Dr. Khumalo, and the rest are going to be stopped. And this was the biggest lamentation of us as black people. We are not going to see his full fruition.
Yeah, but it's got the advantage of time in history. Some of us were old, we're tired, you know, and yeah, he's got, you know what matters the most is that I'll make these comparisons. Stokely Michael, aka Kwame Ture, he said, there's a Chinese saying, if you make a mistake and fail to correct it, you've made a second mistake. He said Martin Luther King Jr., there's one thing about him. He said we all criticized Martin Luther King Jr. We all attacked him. You know, all our formations. He said, but Martin Luther never attacked us back. And Martin Luther King, he was one person. He said, Martin Luther King Jr., he saw his mistakes, but one thing about him, he loved his people, and they underestimated him. You know, that's why eventually Martin Luther King, before he died, he was an enemy, but he loved his people. He said, Martin Luther King, when you went to him, talking to him, arguing, Liberal Malcolm X, he said we all attacked him. He said he became worse, more radical than us. We even got scared. He said, you know, when he saw Martin Luther King now, Abu Akabo beyond Vietnam, mountaintop, he said, we knew that he was going to die before us.
I did a poll, by the way. I did a poll, I included him, Wena, Nota, and,
no.
and Lindsay. Yo, she was so furious. Yes. And why do you include me with these people?
No,
I want polarizing figures of Soweto, and no one besides
I know Ntsiki's views on Lux.
Lux, but come and defend. Come and defend. I
wouldn't have done this if it wasn't for him.
Yeah,
if it was any other number one.
Sure.
If it was any other Popeye, I'd be on the golf course playing. But this one is the director of the movie called Soweto. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Yes, Lux. So. Yeah, and most people they misunderstand. Sometimes I'm in contradict. What's this? Yeah, because I love him. If it was another Ninkampumpa, I'll just ignore him.
Yeah.
You know. So. Yeah, that is that.
Yeah. Look, for me, I mean, you know, jumping on and having a seat for me is a pleasure to always share time with you, because people underestimate the amount of time we have in the universe, not only in our lifetime. You know, in the next 1,000 years, history will then say, here's something with Lux and Ike. You know, they lived and shared the same time, forget the same ideologies.
Soweto boys,
you know,
Pimville boys.
Soweto boys, Pimville boys. So for me, it's always a great pleasure, whether it's when we are arguing or when we are having a great chat. For me, it's always a pleasure to spend time with this man. So it's neither here or there. But as for people that hate me without knowing me, like the lady you just spoke about, Ntsiki, o mogolo nkgono Ntsiki o mogolo ngwana ka o mmitsa nkgono o mogolo le monna o ntloile a sa ntsebe. Ntsiki doesn't know me. Nako ke Zula le bo Prokiti le bo mamang ne ke mmona, she'll never even remember that. Ne ke re Osi dumela, ne ke mhlompha as Osi. Now that she's intoxicated by politics and the edge to be popular, she now speaks about me when she can and would tweet this or that. But I'm not saying this to aggravate or to put more petrol into the fire. Again, if we can as black people, Ntwane Ploma mo Soweto is the easiest to find. We don't need Google. Everyone is Google. Utla mo Pimville, ba fetu Nhlanhla LUX Ploma ka wa kokot. Mamela sister la le fitlile. Ploma mo fase Ntwana. 1 2 3 aki bone krend. Wetsala. I don't need to be your biological sister to reprimand you. Let's say I think something is wrong. Why can't she do that? Since when does an African orientated lady, woman, who would love to ooze the spirit of Miriam Makeba, from what I can see about her, why would she then go the Western route of reprimanding an African child?
Yes.
Twitter's Western, man.
Yes.
Why are such a planting?
No, that's true.
No, man, I'm sorry, Kalai. No, phone number, but it's not about her. Again, these type of things, some of us will remain very blunt about them, and I think you're the older version of me. That's why sometimes I don't overfight you when you say some things.
Something about Lux. When he says I'm an older version of him, not because he's here. I fought him even publicly. But I can tell you, disappointingly as it is, he's been the bigger brother. Actually, he's done what I was supposed to do. He's the one who comes, and say, "Maniga, what's wrong? What's wrong?" I become good. Hey, son, Lux, I'm the one, as his big brother, suppose, but he's the one who reaches out and say, "You know what? What's wrong, my brother? Talk to me. Why don't you talk to me? Why don't you come to me?" So for that, I must humble myself and apologize, and also give him his flowers, because he's one guy, I can say whatever that he'll come to me. He'll not respond in the same. He'll come to me and say, "Hey man, nigga Ike, what's happening?" Then I'll say, "Man, it was a spur of the moment. Oh, this and this." I'm an emotional person. So that is that. But I must give him credit. He showed leadership in some instances where I've had. As they say, you will learn every day. We make mistakes. We are human. So where I've made mistakes, and I hope that one day they'll sit, Libo Nota, and work it out, But I believe that people like Bonsiki, they do have a space. Their voice is also needed.
Yeah.
Siki also attacked me, She invited me on a podcast, and then before that, she attacked me simply because I disagreed with her stance with Jacob Zuma. So then she called me, what do you call it? She says, "Yeah, I know. I'm a womanizer, my this and this." She called me all sorts of names, but I understand. She's my sister. She's my home. And Tsiki comes from Pimville.
Sure.
Her father stayed Koko Pimville, Mazwai. He was a PAC. Yeah. So they were Tandiswa.
Sure.
Yeah. So, and her mother was very, very, very gallant fighter.
Yeah.
Tell us about the schools, the initiative.
Yeah.
How far are you with the programs?
Oh, the schools of rehab, the military schools. So we've got military schools. I think you know about them.
Yeah.
Where we take addicts, males, females from across the country, all provinces. We put them in a remote place on a mountain, and they are there. Before I started with 6 months, but now I'm on a 14 months program, Brother Ike. We take them for 14 months of serious physical training, mental training, psychological training. They come back proper soldiers. So when they come back to the communities, understanding themselves and understanding their role in their families and their communities and the greater role of the country and the continent, etc. So the schools are doing well. We're working on the third school now in Limpopo. The first one is in the Eastern Cape, Matatia. The second one is in Free State. The third one will be Limpopo, followed by Mpumalanga. If I had more hands, I'd make sure those schools are all up at the same time and resources. But I work within, the realms of as far as my hands can reach. There's not much I can do because I'll say it on record. I don't have government help. I don't have corporate assistance.
Yeah.
I do things. The biggest crime of being a black South African is when you can do things for yourself, by yourself, and then those that can't do for themselves, by themselves, they then start labeling you. The money from the white people, I wish that I actually got money from the Ruperts. I wish, Brother Ike. Knowing these people can't be a crime.
You know my view on that. I've always told Lux, relax. Abakanyoko batho ba wintle mare ba patrol yabo ya mare ba patrol aba batla information ra ba ka wrong information mare nyoko yana yabo ra ba patrola we continue ka program.
Sure.
And that is that. So I'm glad that you are doing that. And you've also utilized experts to assist. And because remember, one thing that you must also take into account, which the politicians they fail to do. Some of us, they are trying to destroy. Maybe like, I don't know. I like to destroy. But there's other people who cannot build. If you put or maybe they get bored, get the administrative stuff and all that. And which the liberation movement, most of the time, they've made that mistake. You're a freedom fighter, therefore it must be an administrator. Sometimes you just have to say, you know what, my role is done here.
Yeah.
Let others take over. When these guys came from exile, thank you. KRTP, but unfortunately we thought that these guys will also lead. So sometimes we must open up space for Bolax. And the problem that we see in politics. It's what you've seen even like a soccer. I mean, back in the days, you'll see an under 19 guy promising under 20. From there, it's disappeared. We see the same old faces.
Sure.
So it's time that maybe we allowed, new ideas to come in.
Yeah. No, look, now my contribution to what you're saying is simple. It's tough being black. It's for me, the hardest thing that I've ever had to experience is being black.
Like it's difficult.
And the toughness did not come from the white counterparts. It came from my own black brothers, sisters, aunts, and uncles.
That's why I'm not coming black again.
Yeah.
In my next life. No, I'm not coming black. I was in the memorial of Khumalo Momukai yesterday.
Yeah.
Dr. Khumalo Momukai was killed by black people. He was not killed by Verwoerd. He was not killed by Terre Blanche in Mogarankuwa. This is a guy who's been my role model. This is the guy who had the surgeries, allowing people to come for free of charge. If you know Dr. Khumalo Momukai, he was that person, allowing people to come and serve black people. It's time you read a newspaper where a man raped Coco. He's not a white person.
No,
he's not
definitely.
black.
Definitely.
So, which is sad, because you are vandalized by your own people. But at least that has to change. I believe that we can't just throw our hands in the air because it's gloomy. But unfortunately, being black, it's very difficult.
Credo Muto was killed by black people.
You see.
Credo Muto died and my heart sank when he said, "Bamela, askamplela ka batho ba bantsho, ba tlo tseba next ka batho bao." Yo.
Yeah, so we don't. Yeah, I mean, when you see.
Exiled by black people.
Yes, he was.
Yes.
We
so-
burnt his house
Yeah.
in Soweto. I'm saying we, even though I'm not there, it's them. They know. We burnt his house. Exile.
Yeah,
Yo.
there was the biggest fight, especially post the Namazimzim, when you find the Azasim student fighting with the ANC, which is unnecessary. That's why I'm saying, us as Dakis, we are effective machines when it comes to killing other people. So that's why most of the time, when people saying, what do you think about AfriForum? What do you think about Chindabatbao?
Yeah.
Let us do our own thing. Because most of the time, we always saying, it is them out there. When your children are hungry, they're not going to ask you, what are you in AfriForum? They want food from you.
That's true.
And there are certain things that we can do. We are not victims or perpetual victims.
Yeah.
Because now we've got this victim mentality that, them out there, the globalists, multinationals. I mean, we can do so many things, I mean, you check, like I normally say that, there is no one who has never colonized. If you can check the history of the world, Boma Viscos, Boma Riding, Viscos, Bo Byzantine, Bo Mongolian Empire, Islamic Empire, Bo Sikukuni fighting, Libo Senzangakona, Libo Manchagaga Senzangakona, everyone. But people that dust themselves off and say, let us move, to better tomorrow. But unfortunately with us, we are vandalizing each other, we're killing each other. If I've got differences, like Lux said, instead of approaching him, I'm interested to see him fail. I'm interested to see him, fall, which is bad.
Yeah.
About Lux, they said in 1910 when the Boers and the English found this union of South Africa, it was after they just fought themselves.
Yes.
They decided, let's bury the hatchet. Naluena, we love each other more than the enemy.
Yeah.
They united against oppression of us. So they could forget the small differences.
Yes.
Yeah.
What brought them together. So those who do not want to give Lux chance and forgive and forget. I mean, the problem that we had, what is the advice? How do we pick it up?
Now my advice is human beings are quarrelsome failures by nature. Wherever there are human beings, at some point, but you must always not forget the bigger picture. Sometimes a person you're thinking you're far away, why am I just to me this? And all of a sudden, we must rise beyond that. Or today you did that, and say, it's a minor, Here's the objective. So as human beings, we must always, keep our eyes on the ball. Sometimes we may not like each other all the time, even in relationships. That's why I normally say that black women, they bought into this thing, or I don't feel like anymore. You cannot end a relationship over a temporary thing such as a feeling. A feeling is temporary. I'm no longer fulfilling this relationship. You'll be fulfilled in 2 years to come. You'll be fulfilled next year. You're not fulfilled all the time, because today you feel angry. Where I try? So sometimes you just have to take that decision. Or I'm gonna stick with this guy. So unfortunately with us, I don't feel like at that moment or at some point, something like some stopper, working on the pipe. From there, I hate him forever, and I don't look at the bigger picture.
Sure.
So that is that you can work together, and a union is not always a union of minds that are agreeing.
Yes.
Sometimes it takes enemies coming together, people who don't see eye to eye, but you know what, for the bigger picture. I mean, check the Soviets and the Americans. Those people could have ended the world. Got nuclear engine, just press a red button, but they had to collaborate.
Sure.
Soviets going to these ones, Cuba, never faith, man, even today they're controlling that. No, we're not going to explode the world. We just like to have them, so that but they collaborate. They don't like each other, but they collaborate.
Yeah. No, from my end, if I'm for the first time on any platform, traditional or social media, if I'm to apologize for anything that I've done, Iwan, the apology is not to defend the narrative that confused you about me. I took a conscious decision.
Yeah.
Half the things, or if I could sit here and say probably all, because I don't know what you've heard or read, but I can tell you now that things like Jewish people gave Nhlanhla LUX money for the golf course. That is a lie. We are at the very same golf course. So we can come here and ask Uri, Banaba Habatamaya, by the tournament thing, who contributes towards that? For the golf course to be a world-class golf course, number one in any township across the world, who spearheaded that project? Who was part of the influence for that to happen? When committees went to America to fetch money and Mandela le golf course, let's say Mospantula Saruna South Africa. Kibo mamba ne batsama fatshe ho etsa sure ntwana tsa rona dlala kali. And then the same black community, o thotse 100 million, o di jele from Jewish I don't so all those type of things. For example, you are in these groups.
No,
the Pakistanis.
No, the people.
Pakistanis bamufile cheleta. Like that's the biggest one, right? And we in
the question came after your trip to Ethiopia.
After fighting.
No, the ruler. Then I was told that there's 100 million figure that the government of Ethiopia issued. I don't know where the money is. I don't know who lended the money, but there was that issue, 100 million figure. That was issued. For me, I don't give a damn about money. I don't need money. So it broke my heart. Can we really fight the very same people, that we are trying, to defend the country against, which they mustn't do as they please. They can make us fight like that.
Sure.
It was that issue, that people came to me. Even the issue at the houses, who took the houses, who never patrol. Yeah.
But to cut that short, I mean, even with the trip to Ethiopia, during the height of fighting against illegal undocumented foreigners in our country, when I went to Ethiopia, I did full consultation, not only with everyone within that Tutula space, including Ike, who's also in and outside Tutula, because he was then our godfather of thought, because he's a scholar, you see. So you don't underestimate such people in your environment. I said, Mamela, Ethiopia, it's against, it's sponsored by the West, by America itself. And people are dying every day. And I want to kill this narrative that in Tutula we are very small, narrow-minded and short-sighted. We don't care for Africans. That's not true. We just care for the truth, and we know where the truth is. So, sign an indemnity, like how many people are doing between Russia and Ukraine. It's okay if people go to Russia or Ukraine, choose a side. But it's not okay when a Soweto boy says that, Mamela, with all my expertise and skills, I'm going there to assist an African country, then I'll come back,
The trip about Ethiopia, Nhlanhla did call me.
Sure.
He actually wanted me to join him, but
yes, actually.
At that time I couldn't travel.
Yeah.
I couldn't travel. But like he said, we don't have issues with foreigners simply because they are foreigners. The issues emanates from the dealings that they do. I mean, South Africans, they've always lived with foreigners from the 1800s, the discovery of gold. The tlapsako kasi ne di ona ke batho ba Malawi, Makhalanga, Manyasa, we used to call them Amakirimani, Bosbali. The term Smali comes from there. Some they remained. They married our sisters. So he's correct when he said that we don't hate them because of their nationality.
Yeah.
So
In closing,
yes.
what kind of culture do we need to rekindle brotherhood for African guys? In closing, you can close and you can close. Just speak about
No, but maybe he's my senior. Let him close after.
You can start first.
Yeah,
because
it's
sometimes
important.
I must learn from.
I think a culture that we must all look forward to is, number one, a culture that is centered around the truth. If we can start speaking the truth without defense mechanisms, and if I say to you as a Zimbabwean, to understand what your impact is in my livelihood since you came in certain numbers, listen to me so that we can find common ground, because then our conversation debate will be guided by the truth. But if I start saying Zimbabwean, and then even your sponsored media start saying the xenophobia, then we're not getting anywhere. Our kids are going to be born in war, maybe social war, that will later convert into physical war. Maybe the physical war will not happen now, but it will definitely come because of you. Listen, you are short-sighted if you think you are fighting me. You are fighting the truth, because I'm just here to deliver the truth. I may step out, I will say the same thing, because this is how we feel. You can't dictate our feelings and expressions, therefore, or thereafter. When you say that this is how I feel when you are around me, Ike must then say, but you know that I'm not an intimidating person, but why are you intimidated when you're around me? Then maybe I can come up with a good reason. When I was growing up, my father was a taxi driver. Guys in leather jackets came and shot him in front of me when I was 7 years old. Then we understand. Sharp, I say, Ike, maybe it's the demeanor that comes with my trauma that I see Ike, what makes me see when I look at Ike. Then we can fix that. Maybe I can come to my soccer matches, golf matches in tracksuits now. And he knows that he's actually taking me along, and we are all going together down this journey. But you can't dismiss my traumas. You can't dismiss my experiences. So the culture that we must all look forward to is a culture of collaboration, especially as Africans. You must teach me about you. I must teach you about me, and so that we can respect each other, because the borders that we speak about are not physical. Even if I can take you from here to Lesotho, a physical wall, but the borders have always been there. They've always been there. River, a cultural experience. The language are divided. O kara hastlar, but was venda kai ribuas Shona, or ribuas Tswana, or ribuas Zulu. So that is a natural border. So we have to respect each other. Lastly, when I close, I'm saying that Amazulu anaya kumshweshwe. To pay for a sign of respect, so that there's a certain type of people that are coming, they're just passing through, or they are not passing through. There's a disease that just hit us hard, and we heard that you guys solved it. How do we then solve it? There was ways of doing things, and we can't get rid of those ways simply because now we are articulating ourselves in English, and West has taken over our minds, and space and spirit can never be. Some of us remain to be African, and the true definition of Africa is what we've always been preaching. You are defending with Western nonsense mentality.
Yeah, for me, just to follow what he's saying, that it is important for us to work together. We'll not agree all the time, and make compromises where we must, for the betterment of all, for a greater goal. And where we've rubbed each other the wrong way, made mistake, be a bigger man and say, you know what, I apologize here. I didn't see things the way, I thought they were. And this is where I also give Lux his flowers and credit, because he's always, that I must say, he's always reach out. No matter what he hears about me, I'm just a striker. So sometimes I snap. Sometimes even my woman, she'll say, thanks for insulting me. Because sometimes I just shoot from the hip, And as a human being, you must be big enough, where you've made a mistake, and say, you know what, yeah, I bow my head and, ask for forgiveness, and I'm sorry here and there. But, those things, they'll always be there, if, we love this country, we all love this country. We're going to make mistakes, we're going to rub each other the wrong way sometimes, but you must never forget, you know, the bigger picture. Like I made an example earlier on. Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichaels, and Martin Luther, they always fought each other. And one thing that I said about Martin Luther, he was a bigger man. He never attacked them back. You know, they've accused him of things, of striking Jewish man. Malcolm X is the one who says, you took this in, you know. But at the end of the day, they all loved their people. So, and they all corrected their mistakes. You know, as they say in the old Chinese say, you know, if you make the first mistake and fail to correct it, you've made the second mistake.
Sure.
You know, so we must always take into account that Africans, they are effective machines. You know, when it comes to killing, especially each other, we must avoid that. Rwanda genocides, they start with the small things. You know, but Nigeria, but Biafra, they start with these small things. So as people, we must always come together, you know, and, you know, work our differences. Like Mahowa, they did 1910. I mean, they fought terrible wars. If you check the history of Anglo-Boer War, the concentration camps were started by the English here. You know, when they, I mean, you go to the history of Europe, these people, they managed to rebuild. The Americans, now they're friends, they were Germany, they were Britain. I mean, those Allied forces, they raped 2 million Jewish German women at the end of the war. You know, everyone has colonized one another, but they've got this ability to come together. So now we're Zondana forever. Yeah. You know, that is the mistake that, you know, you must overcome. Lino, I heard you the last time you were talking about the history of Limpopo. I see it when I go to Pretoria, even in Kokoto. Unali mavenda yemidaka ufela. Unali matsonga kebo mabena kebo chaoke. Unali mazulu. And me, I come from Soweto. I don't know. I don't fit in KZN because I don't talk proper Zulu. You know, I don't fit in Kaiko mavending. I don't fit Kai. So kasi. So the way we live, you know. And I must say that, you know, townships. Even though, you know, people from the villages, they think that, or they used to think that they're inferior. When we try to deal away with things like tribalism because we stay together. We use the same golf force. We use the same police station. We use the same schools, maybe trade languages. So it's not easy to become a tribalist because I'm not going to live there. You know, when you play soccer, the grounds, the transport system, we use the same transport system, the movies, the theaters. You know, when I buy my ticket, I'm not buying a ticket because we stay together. We used to play little teams style. So that is an example of cooperation. So I think that should continue.
Because listening to him is like a breath of fresh air. I can't stop listening. You spoke about something very important. You said you want to be remembered, or you will be remembered as LUX who lived at the times of Ike. Yes. You know, you speak a lot about Martin Luther King Jr. You know, if you Google the interaction between Malcolm X, which is my personal favorite, and of course Martin Luther King, they actually met at a very few times. Even if around 1963 they were at the same height of popularity, but they actually never met. It was just a moment. And if you blame, you could say maybe the ego. And I'm very happy that these Soweto giants did not have time for ego and can you go level for that thing.
No, LUX, you must also host LUX, you know. I don't know whether you have. No?
Part 2, we did the front 9. We did the front 9. We'll come back to the back 9. He promised he'll organize Muzi when we do that.
Yeah, because for me, I feel that he has got lots of mileage and he's both streetwise and scale. So he's in, you know, both worlds. So
he's a gem.
Yeah, and that's why I was mad at him because I know his potential. You know, when you see a person, you can see with no man, this guy is going far. But there's something in blocker. You know, sometimes I will just express myself in anger. But yeah, I wish him to do well, especially the issue of the drugs, because we don't have a future if we allow the drugs, you know, to continue, you know, killing our youth. I mean, what's that, you know, without our youth? Because now it has become common. The images that we see in other countries, You know, after the fall of the Black Panthers, people dragged, you know, we can't live like that.
Yeah, no, ke a leboga. Ke nyako e tswalla. I feel it will be unfair not to give like sa e tswalle, but anya ko e tswalla because when out lobo a ke tsebro ya kae. But I want to congratulate you for playing well at the I'm stating it at the Ramaphosa Golf. Go Cape Town. You killed them and I was very happy that you did. My golf master. My shed politically incorrect. Please
he that
allow me
good?
to
You will
close
get
it. No, he's very good. Yeah, he taught me a lot. He taught me a lot. Thank you guys. Let me close it. I think we've done. We are out of resources. Thank you, Eitada. Ola.
Eat us.